Welcome to another dark confession from the wasteland. This is the story of the war they erased from history. We are going to talk about the decade that does not exist, the years between 2052 and 2062, the Tranquility War cover-up, a conflict fought in silence 300,000 kilometers above Earth, while the world below remained oblivious. I was Lieutenant Colonel Sarah Chen, USSA's youngest mission commander. They sent me to the moon to fight the Chinese over fusion fuel. I watched friends die in vacuum. I signed a treaty in a frozen shelter with an enemy who was not really an enemy. And when I came home, they showed me my own obituary and told me to forget everything or join the 17 others already buried in Nevada. But I did not forget. I could not forget. Because something happened up there that changed me, changed all of us. Something that connects to why the bombs fell, something that explains what humanity really is. And if you genuinely enjoy this kind of dark storytelling, consider subscribing and liking the channel, but only if you like the content. They told me I was hallucinating from radiation exposure when I described the Chinese lunar base in my debriefing. Then, they showed me the pre-written obituary they had prepared with my name on it. That is when I knew the Tranquil War would be erased from history. My name was Lieutenant Colonel Sarah Chen. Was because that person does not exist anymore, according to every government database in America. I was 32 years old when they called me into the black site beneath Cheyenne Mountain in March 2051. I remember walking through corridors that descended so deep the air pressure changed. My ears popped 3 times before we reached the briefing room. The president himself was there. Not a video feed, not a hologram. Him, in person, surrounded by men in uniforms I did not recognize. That should have been my first warning. When the commander-in-chief shows up in person for a briefing, you are either about to receive the Medal of Honor, or you are about to be asked to do something that will haunt you forever. He said the Chinese had been mining helium-3 on the moon for 3 months already, stealth launches from their Gobi Desert facility. Our satellites caught the heat signatures, but by then, their automated harvesters were already operational. The president leaned forward, and his knuckles went white against the briefing table. We cannot let them monopolize fusion fuel while our nation starves for energy, he said. I was the youngest mission commander in USSA history. They picked me because I had logged more zero-gravity combat training hours than anyone else in the program. What they did not tell me until later was that I was also expendable, young enough to be ambitious, experienced enough to be capable, but not important enough to cause problems if I disappeared. Operation Selene got approved that same day. $4 trillion in black budget funding, 36 astronauts, modified Virgo 7 landers equipped with electromagnetic rail rifles. We trained for 4 months in facilities that officially did not exist. They built a mock lunar surface in an underground cavern in Nevada. We practiced firefights in 1/6 gravity until our muscles remembered the strange ballet of combat where every movement sent you floating. July 4th, 2051. Poetic timing for America's first extraterrestrial war. My squad landed at Mare Tranquillitatis at 0347 hours. The landing was silent. Everything on the moon is silent. You get used to hearing only your own breathing inside your helmet and the crackle of radio chatter, but the silence still gets to you after a while. It feels wrong somehow, like the universe is holding its breath. We spotted the Chinese position at 0612 hours. Their base was hidden in a crater rim, camouflaged with lunar regolith. If our intelligence had not given us the exact coordinates, we would have walked right past it. I remember thinking how strange it looked, like someone had taken a submarine and buried it sideways in moon dust. The first shots were fired at 0645 hours. Sergeant Mills took point. He was a good soldier, ex-Marine, had seen combat in Alaska during the early resource wars. He knew how to move, how to think under pressure. I watched him leap 40 feet to flank a Chinese position. 1/6 gravity made us all superhuman in terms of mobility. He sailed through the vacuum like he had wings. Then a micrometeorite punctured his suit. Not enemy fire, just bad luck. A piece of space debris, no bigger than a grain of sand, moving at thousands of miles per hour. It punched through his chest plate and out his back. His blood crystallized instantly in the vacuum. It hung in the air around him like a red cloud of frozen diamonds. He did not even have time to scream. The radio just went dead. What do you think really happened here? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We discovered the Chinese had built pressurized tunnels beneath the regolith, an entire military complex, invisible from Earth-based telescopes. They had nuclear reactors down there, powered by lunar uranium. I did not even know there was uranium on the moon until I saw those reactors with my own eyes. The tunnels went down hundreds of feet. They had been preparing for this for years, while we thought they were just launching satellites. By December 2051, both sides had deployed tactical nuclear devices. I witnessed the first nuclear explosion on the moon. We were ordered to hold a position at the edge of Shackleton Crater, while Command decided our next move. The Chinese launched their nuke from a position 15 miles away. There was no sound, no shockwave, no mushroom cloud like you see in training videos. Just a silent spherical bloom of light that turned the dark side of the crater into day for exactly 4 seconds. Then darkness again, but the regolith it kicked up never came down. Some of it is still up there, floating in permanent orbit around the moon. Frozen dust contaminated with radiation that will circle our satellite for centuries. The Battle of Shackleton Crater cost us 18 astronauts in 72 hours. Command called it a strategic victory because we held the position, but I was there. I saw what happened. We did not hold anything. We just survived while they retreated to regroup. Those 18 bodies are still there in the crater. Recovery was deemed strategically unnecessary. That is what the official report said. Strategically unnecessary, as if humans could be unnecessary. I learned the Chinese had developed a biological weapon specifically for lunar deployment. They called it Red Moon. It was a modified bacterium that could survive in the oxygen supplies of our suits. It consumed lung tissue within hours. You would feel fine, then suddenly you could not breathe. Your lungs would fill with fluid, and you would drown inside your own helmet while your squad watched helplessly through your faceplate. We lost 11 people to Red Moon before our scientists figured out how to filter it out. There are 3 impossible things I will tell you about. The first is that both superpowers agreed to forget this war ever happened. The second is that the technology we developed up there changed everything about the vaults. The third is something I cannot tell you yet, but by the end of this, you will understand why I chose Vault 111. Major Zhang was my Chinese counterpart. I never met him face to face until the ceasefire. We had been fighting each other for 6 months. I knew his tactics better than I knew my own family. He favored ambush positions in tunnel junctions. He always kept his reserve forces hidden until the critical moment. He was careful with his people, never wasted lives on glory charges. I respected that even though he was the enemy. He contacted me directly on January 10th, 2052. Encrypted channel, personal frequency. His English was perfect. Lieutenant Colonel Chen, he said, we have both lost over 60% of our forces. I propose we speak as soldiers rather than politicians. I almost reported it to command. Almost. But I was tired of watching people die in silence, tired of fighting a war that nobody on Earth even knew was happening. We met in a pressurized emergency shelter at the lunar equator on January 15th, 2052, neutral ground. The shelter was designed for emergencies, barely big enough for 4 people. Just him, me, and 1 aide each. The Treaty of Tranquility was written on a data pad and signed with a pen that froze solid between signatures. We had to warm it up with our gloves each time. That detail stuck with me. The most important treaty of the 21st century, and we signed it with a pen that kept freezing. Both governments agreed to classify everything under Protocol 77 Alpha. Any mention of the Tranquil War would result in immediate termination. Literally, not figuratively. They showed us photographs, shallow graves in Nevada, pre-dug, with our names already on the headstones. They wanted us to understand the stakes, silence or death. Those were our options. I was medically retired 3 weeks after I returned to Earth. Official diagnosis was radiation exposure from high-altitude aviation testing. Gave me a pension conditional on quarterly polygraph tests at a CIA black site. Every 3 months, for the next 25 years, I would sit in a windowless room while they asked me the same question. Have you discussed Operation Selene with anyone? Have you attempted to contact other Tranquil War veterans? Have you kept any physical evidence from your deployment? I said no, 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 every time. The machine said I was telling the truth. I got very good at beating polygraphs. They surgically removed my hippocampus memories using an experimental procedure developed by Dr. Klein at Big MT. He had developed memory suppression technology specifically for Tranquil War veterans. 43 astronauts underwent the procedure between 2052 and 2054. It was supposed to erase everything, but the nightmares remained, stored somewhere deeper than the hippocampus, somewhere the surgery could not reach. I still dream about silent death and vacuum. I still see Sergeant Mills and his cloud of frozen blood. If you have ever wondered what choice you would make in a situation like this, tell me in the comments. My handler showed me satellite images 3 years after the war ended. We were in one of those quarterly polygraph sessions. He slid the photographs across the table without saying anything. Mass graves in Nevada, fresh dirt, recent excavation dates visible in the metadata. 17 other Tranquil War veterans had committed suicide using identical methods. 2 bullets to the back of the head. That is what the official reports claimed. Suicide with 2 bullets to the back of the head. I knew most of those names. Captain Rodriguez had been my second in command. Lieutenant Yamamoto had saved my life during the Red Moon outbreak. Sergeant First Class O'Brien had been engaged to be married when we shipped out. All of them dead. All of them supposedly by their own hand. All within 18 months of returning to Earth. The photographs showed something else though. The graves were organized in rows, military precision. Each one exactly 6 feet deep, exactly 3 feet wide, standardized dimensions. You do not dig graves like that for suicides. You dig graves like that when you are preparing for expected casualties. Those graves had been dug before those astronauts died, maybe even before we came back from the moon. I started keeping records after that. Nothing obvious. Nothing they could find during their quarterly searches of my apartment. I memorized names and dates. I created codes based on old mission parameters. If anyone found my notebooks, they would look like grocery lists and appointment reminders. But I knew what they really were. Evidence, proof that something happened up there that they wanted erased. The official records stated all Mars preparation missions were canceled due to budget constraints. That is what the news said. That is what Congress was told. But I knew the truth. The lunar infrastructure was not abandoned. It was converted. Automated weapon platforms, missile silos, buried in regolith. The moon became a gun pointed at Earth. Both sides did it. Both sides pretended they had not. I discovered something else too. Vault-Tec had contracts to build lunar vaults, Project Olympus. They used technology tested during the Tranquil War. Life support systems that could function in hard vacuum, radiation shielding far beyond anything needed on Earth, cryogenic suspension pods that could keep someone alive for centuries. Why would you need that on the moon unless you were planning for something permanent? Unless you knew something was coming? The real reason? America pushed so hard for the Mars Shot project had nothing to do with exploration or national pride. It was a backup plan. After learning what warfare in space actually cost in human lives, they wanted options. Multiple planets, multiple locations, multiple chances for humanity to survive whatever was coming next. In 2076, I found proof buried in classified documents I should never have seen. A former colleague owed me a favor. He worked in records management at Peterson Air Force Base. He got me access to a terminal for exactly 12 minutes while he took a smoke break. I had prepared for months, knew exactly what to search for, exactly what keywords to use. Project Olympus was real. Vault-Tec had built 3 experimental vaults on the moon between 2054 and 2061, fully operational, fully stocked, capable of supporting 500 people for 50 years in lunar conditions. The vaults were hidden in craters on the far side. Invisible from Earth, the documentation included supply, manifests, crew rosters, and something that made my blood run cold: experiment protocols. Vault-Tec was not building shelters on the moon. They were building laboratories. Each lunar vault had a different experiment. Vault L1 was testing long-term isolation effects on populations that knew they could never return home. Vault L2 was studying rapid evolution in low-gravity environments using experimental mutagens. Vault L3 was classified even within the classified documents, just a designation and a budget line. $90 billion for an experiment with no description. I had 4 minutes left on that terminal when I found the final piece, a coded message dated October 22nd, 2077. One day before the bombs fell, it was addressed to all 3 lunar vaults. Message read, Selene II authorized. Maintain communications blackout. Await further instructions. Planet-side operations proceeding as planned. Selene II. They had named the second phase after our operation. After the war, they told us never happened. Whatever was about to occur on October 23rd, the moon was part of it. The vaults up there knew it was coming. I copied what I could to a holotape I had modified with my own encryption. Then I cleared the terminal history and walked out like nothing had happened. My hands were shaking so badly I had to sit in my car for 20 minutes before I could drive. I kept thinking about those lunar vaults, about people living up there right now, about experiments running in the dark, about whatever Selene II meant. 3 days before the Great War, I received a coded message. It came through an old emergency channel we had used during the Tranquil War, a channel that was supposed to be decommissioned and scrubbed from all systems. The message was short, just 6 words: Tranquility Base operational. Selene II authorized. May God forgive us all. I knew then that everything was connected. The war on the moon, the cover-up, the murdered astronauts, the lunar vaults, the Mars Shot project, Vault-Tec. All of it was one continuous operation spanning 25 years. We had not been soldiers fighting for resources. We had been test subjects, guinea pigs, for something much larger. The children in those accelerated education programs that started appearing in 2075 were not being trained for regular schools. I recognized the exercises they were doing: low-gravity adaptation training, psychological conditioning for isolation, radiation exposure therapy. They were training 6-year-olds to survive on the moon, training them young because children adapt better to low gravity than adults, training them because someone knew those kids would need those skills. I started calling families of other Tranquil War veterans in October 2077, used payphones, changed locations, never said anything specific, just asked if they remembered their loved one mentioning the moon, if anything seemed strange about how they died. Most hung up on me. 3 agreed to meet. All 3 died in car accidents before our scheduled meetings. Different cities, different circumstances, all within the same week. That is when I chose Vault 111. Not randomly, Not because it was close to my home in Boston. I chose it because its cryogenic systems were based on technology we had used to preserve casualties on the moon. I had seen the technical specifications during my time at Cheyenne Mountain. Vault-Tec had not developed that technology themselves. They had acquired it from USSA, from Operation Selene, from us. I thought if I could survive in cryogenic stasis long enough, I could outlive everyone who knew the truth, everyone who wanted me dead for knowing. I thought maybe in 200 years, someone would thaw me out, and I could finally tell them what really happened, what we did up there, what they made us forget. But here is what terrifies me most, what keeps me frozen in this pod, even though part of me wants to wake up. The message I received 3 days before the bombs fell was not a warning, it was a countdown. Selene II was not canceled when the nukes launched. It was activated. Right now, while Earth burns, there are people on the moon carrying out experiments, running operations, following protocols that were set in motion 25 years ago. Sometimes I wonder if the Great War was just the cover story for something worse, a war that had already moved beyond Earth, where the real powers were fighting for the future of humanity among the stars. While everyone on the surface fought over oil and territory, the real battle was happening 300,000 kilometers away in the silence of space. I have spent decades piecing this together, decades wondering if I am paranoid, or if I am the only one who sees the pattern. But the evidence keeps accumulating, the inconsistencies, the impossible coincidences, the fact that I am still alive when 17 others are dead. Maybe they kept me alive because I am useful, or maybe they kept me alive because I am insurance, evidence they can dispose of whenever they need a scapegoat. The Tranquil War lasted 14 months. Official history says nothing happened on the moon in 2051 and 2052. Says the last manned mission was a simple recovery operation. Says there was no combat, no casualties, no battles in vacuum. But I was there. I pulled triggers in 1/6 gravity. I watched friends die in silence. I signed a treaty with the enemy to stop the killing before we destroyed each other completely. And now I lie here in cryogenic suspension, wondering what is happening up there, wondering if Vault L1, L2, and L3 are still operational, wondering what Selene II really means, wondering if humanity's future is not down here in the irradiated wasteland, but up there in the craters and tunnels of the moon, wondering if we were never meant to survive down here at all. If this story has kept you listening this far, and you want more of these dark confessions from the wasteland, hit that subscribe button. It tells me someone out there is still paying attention to warnings like these. The truth about my time in Vault 111 is not what you think. I was not a random resident who got lucky. I was placed there deliberately. Vault-Tec knew exactly who I was. They knew about Operation Selene. They knew about the Tranquil War, and they needed someone with my specific memories preserved in ice. When I entered Vault 111 on October 23rd, 2077, there was a technician waiting for me. He was not supposed to be there. Standard protocol was automated systems only, but he stood by my cryopod with a data slate in his hands. He looked at my face, checked something on his screen, then nodded. Pod 17, he said. Special protocols. I asked what that meant. He just smiled and said, "You will understand when you wake up." The cryopod closed. The chemicals flooded my system. And in those last few seconds of consciousness before the freeze took me, I saw him input a code into the terminal. A long string of numbers I recognized immediately. It was a USSA mission code. Specifically, it was my mission code from Operation Selene, the one that was supposed to be erased from every database in America. I have been awake for 3 minutes now. The pod opened automatically at 0347 hours, the same time we landed at Mare Tranquillitatis 26 years ago. That is not a coincidence. Nothing about this is coincidence. The cryo system kept me under for exactly 200 years while it kept everyone else frozen, everyone except me. The vault is empty, not abandoned, empty. There are no other pods active, no bodies on the floor, no signs of malfunction or breach, just pristine equipment humming quietly in the darkness, and me, alone, with a terminal next to my pod displaying a message that has been waiting 2 centuries for me to read it. The message is from Major Zhang, my Chinese counterpart from the Tranquil War, the man I signed the Treaty of Tranquility with in a frozen emergency shelter. The message is dated November 15th, 2077, 3 weeks after the bombs fell. It reads, Colonel Chen, if you are reading this, then the Selene 2 protocols have completed successfully. Thank you for your service. The real war is over. Humanity won. You may now understand what we were actually fighting for up there. There is a file attached, 60,000 pages of documentation. I am scrolling through it now, and my hands are shaking again, just like they did in my car outside Peterson Air Force Base. Everything I suspected was true. Everything and worse. So much worse. The Tranquil War was never about helium-3 mining. That was the cover story we believed while we fought. The real operation was something called the Divergence Protocol. Both the United States and China discovered something on the moon in 2050, something buried in Mare Tranquillitatis, something old, something not human. The entity they found was dormant but contained information, technology, warnings. It showed both governments what was coming, showed them that Earth would destroy itself within 30 years, showed them the exact date, October 23rd, 2077. The Great War was not a surprise. It was scheduled, it was inevitable, and it had happened before to other species on other worlds. The Tranquil War was staged. Every battle, every casualty, every bullet fired in vacuum was theater. We thought we were fighting each other, but we were actually testing equipment, testing humans, testing who could survive in extraterrestrial environments under combat stress. The astronauts who died were not casualties of war. They were data points in an experiment to determine human adaptability. The astronauts who were murdered after returning to Earth were not killed to protect secrets. They were selected out. The weakest, the ones who could not handle the psychological pressure, the ones who would break under interrogation or go public. It was quality control, culling the herd. I survived because I passed their tests, because I kept quiet, because I was useful. Project Olympus, the lunar vaults, were not experiments. They were arcs. When the bombs fell on Earth, 500 carefully selected humans were already living on the moon. Scientists, engineers, soldiers, children, people who had no idea they were leaving Earth permanently, people who thought they were participating in a 10-year research mission, people who are still up there right now, alive, thriving, building a civilization in the craters while Earth burned. Selene II was not a military operation. It was a transition protocol. When the Great War began, the lunar colonies went dark, cut all communications with Earth, sealed themselves away, became self-sufficient. The 3 lunar vaults were just the beginning. By 2077, they had expanded into 12 permanent settlements, population approaching 8,000, a complete backup of humanity hidden on the far side of the moon where no one on Earth could see them. The entity in Mare Tranquillitatis gave them something else too, FTL technology, faster than light travel, real interstellar capability, not the primitive rocket systems we used in the 2050 seconds, something that could cross light years in days. The Mars Shot project was not about Mars. It was about the nearest star system, about colonies beyond our solar system, about spreading humanity so far across the galaxy that nothing could wipe us out completely. Here is the third impossible thing, the thing I could not tell you until now. I am not Lieutenant Colonel Sarah Chen. I mean, I am, but I am also something else, something the entity changed during my time on the moon, something I did not realize until this moment reading these files. The memory suppression surgery was not meant to erase my memories. It was meant to suppress something else, something they implanted, something that needed time to grow. I can feel it now. Information flooding into my consciousness. Specifications for technology that should not exist. Mathematical proofs for physics I never studied. Star charts for regions of space no human has mapped. Languages I never learned. The entity did not give humanity warnings and technology. It gave humanity carriers. People like me, who could preserve and transmit information across centuries. Living archives disguised as traumatized soldiers. There are others like me. 43 astronauts underwent the same procedure. 43 carriers scattered across different vaults, different locations, different timelines for awakening. Some will wake up in 10 years, some in 50, some in 500, each carrying different pieces of the puzzle, each programmed to activate when humanity is ready for the next step. Vault 111's real experiment was not studying the effects of cryogenic stasis. It was preserving me specifically, keeping me frozen until the optimal moment, until Earth's surface had changed enough, until the radiation had reshaped the ecosystem, until humanity had adapted. This moment, right now, 0347 hours, 200 years after the world ended, the terminal is showing me coordinates now, a location in the Commonwealth, somewhere I need to go, something I need to find. Other carriers are waking up across the wasteland. We will be drawn together, pulled by programming we cannot resist. And when we gather, when all 43 carriers meet, something will happen. Something the entity planned 200 years ago. Something that will change everything again. I am walking through the vault now. My footsteps echo in the empty corridors. The exit is ahead. Sunlight streaming through cracks in the door. Beyond that door is a world I do not recognize. A wasteland built on the ashes of the civilization I knew. But somewhere up above me, 300,000 kilometers away, there is another world. A world that never burned. A world building ships that can cross the stars. A world that thinks Earth is dead. They are wrong. Earth is not dead. It is transforming. The radiation is not just destroying. It is creating, mutating, evolving, making something new. And we carriers are supposed to guide that process. Supposed to shepherd humanity through its next stage. Supposed to connect the surface survivors with the lunar colonies when the time is right. Supposed to unite two branches of humanity that have been separate for 2 centuries. But I have a choice they did not account for. I can follow the programming, go to the coordinates, meet the other carriers, become whatever tool the entity designed us to be. Or I can resist, can fight the compulsion, can tell everyone what really happened, can expose the truth about the Tranquil War and the Divergence Protocol and the lunar colonies and everything they tried to hide. I am standing at the vault door now, my hand on the controls. The wasteland waits beyond. Somewhere up there on the moon, people who think they are humanity's only hope are looking down at Earth. Somewhere in the Commonwealth, other carriers are waking up confused and programmed. Somewhere in my mind, information planted by an alien entity is trying to take control. The door opens. The light is blinding after 200 years in darkness. I step forward into the wasteland, into a world remade by fire and radiation, into a future no one could have predicted. And I carry with me the greatest secret humanity has ever kept. The secret that we were never alone, that we were chosen, that we were transformed, that the war on the moon was just the beginning of something vast and terrifying and beautiful. They wanted me to forget. They wanted all of us to forget. But I remember the silence of combat in vacuum. I remember signing a treaty with an enemy who was not really an enemy. I remember being changed by something ancient and alien. And now I will remember what comes next. The Tranquil War was erased from history, but history is written by survivors. And I survived. We all survived. Earth survived. Humanity survived. And now we face a choice. Stay divided between surface and sky, or unite and claim our place among the stars. The entity gave us the tools. The Tranquil War gave us the training. The Great War gave us the transformation. What we do with it is up to us.